I've never done any of my interviews as just audio. I think the magic for me is that one-on-one, very personal kind of special relationship that you have at that moment. And I realize that a lot has gone into Zoom and Google Meet and stuff like that. And that's just where we are in society right now. But I still believe in that old school magic of being together.
George the Tech.
I'm a very personal kind of person. I think it has a lot to do with my upbringing. My dad was a business guy, and he was a shake hands business guy, and he talked to people for long periods of time. As a kid, you're just, oh, man, when is this going to be over? But it's slowly seeping into your brain and becoming part of who you are, right? I've always enjoyed that one-on-one personal interaction with other people. And so when I started doing my own interviews, it served multi-purposes. Of course, part where I'm doing the interview, but then there's the other part where I'm also learning from this person in a very personal kind of way. I think you were talking about Joe Cipriano. I've been to Joe's house and checked out his setup, and we had really great conversation. So there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that's not in the video, right? There are a lot of these conversations that are not in the video that the audience doesn't see, because I spend hours with whoever I'm interviewing. It's between the setup, it's between the tear down, sometimes it's getting some food, mashing with them.
There's a difference between being a vlogger or doing what I'm doing, which is just an off-the-cuff interview, and someone who wants to really know and get to know somebody and spend that time. And it's a real investment of time.
Yeah.
To do all those things. And to me, that's what journalism is about, is putting that real effort, time to learn and educate way more deeply. Yeah. And that's really important. We cannot lose that. We as a society cannot lose.
Yeah, we can go super deep into the importance of that. And then there's different levels of journalism. I was actually a journalism student my first year of college, and I've always loved the news. And I think we've transitioned to, in the news, a lot of news magazine kind of journalism. And I think that's the kind of thing that I've captured, I think, in the videos that I've done, the video interviews that I do with people. Even in the one-on-one interviews, the solo interviews, even in the solo interviews that I do, I guess it's not interviews. I guess even in the solo videos that I do, I'm just talking to my audience.
Sure.
And it's a different style than what's being done now. But for me, it feels very personal. It feels very like just me and the person that I'm talking to in the room.
Absolutely. And it's less distractions. I'll be completely honest in that doing these interviews on my computer is more distracting, because it's very hard to shut off everything on the outside, because you get notifications. I literally, while you were just speaking, got a notification from my girlfriend who needed to text me and say, I'm going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
I don't know why I needed to know that. I didn't need to know that. But there it was. And so that immediately
she wants to know if you need anything at the grocery store.
but still, that means in the middle of the conversation, my attention is being diverted. And something that I've been a lot more vocal about over the last 3 months is that I clearly have ADHD. So for me, anything that pulls my attention away is going to have a negative impact on what I'm doing, because it's so difficult to refocus. I'm notorious at losing my train of thought. I'm notorious at walking into a room and not remembering why I was going in there. These are realities for my brain.
We are one in the same, George. We are one in the same. Yeah.
It's good. So we're both finding ways to manage this, but we're doing that right now, right?
Yeah.
I want to take this moment right now to finally introduce my friend Dane here, who we've been talking for a while recording, but we haven't officially started the interview. But this is all great, and we're not going to lose this. But let me take a moment to introduce you. This is the George the Tech podcast, and today, sitting down with me in my series of interviews that I call Trusted Partners, I've got with me Dane Reid. And Dane is so unique in my client base because he is coming from a journalistic perspective as a voice actor. And I love that he brings that to the table. He runs Dane Reid Media, and he does a lot of really great in-depth, sit-down, face-to-face interviews. And that's what we're talking about today. Dane, I really appreciate you doing that with me today and getting into a conversation as intimate as we can from 2,000 miles away. I'm here in Los Angeles. You're there in the Atlanta area. And I have to say, I will say this too. I will take the moment to plug that you sat me down for an interview.
Yeah. This
And we
isn't the
got to
first
do-
time that we're doing this. I'm just on the other end this time.
Right.
You're asking me questions,
It's
which is
my
weird
turn
for
to-
me.
Yeah, it's my turn to turn the camera around. We were sitting on that very couch right
On
behind you.
the
and,
couch right behind, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was lovely. So if you guys want to check that out on Dane's YouTube channel, please do. But we're flipping it around to talk to you about what is important to you in the way you do your work. You're a person that likes the details. I was in your home. It's not a cluttered place full of collections and chaos. You like to have a space that's clears your mind. I'm finding out right now that you and I share this commonality of dealing with essentially ADHD, where distractions can be really detrimental. We have to flash back because we always have to do this.
Okay.
I need to know a little bit more. I know that you came from a year of schooling in journalism.
Yeah.
Voiceover was not anywhere on the roadmap at that point, I'm assuming. Right?
Yeah, so talking about ADHD, it goes all the way back. I've never been officially diagnosed, but I hit all the markers of the symptoms, right? And
Correct.
so my first year of college, I majored in journalism. I won't tell you how long ago that was, but I'm older than I look. And my first year in college, I was doing journalism. I've always loved journalism. I've always loved the news. I've always been a newsy guy. And I was writing these articles, handing them in, and my teacher would always give them, my professor would always give them back to me, and I'd have a C. And I'm like, what is going on? So I met with him, and he says, going down the page, excellent, 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 great point, great. I knew exactly how to structure my articles and everything. And so I was perplexed. Why am I getting C's? Well, I was turning in these articles 2 and 3 days late. And he said to me, journalism is right now. And it's when everything is distracting you, when you have to clear your mind in order to get things very linear in the way that you want them to be, then it may take 2 or 3 days for you to get that done. Anyone who thinks the way that I think, the way that you seem to think, we need to pull things together. We may even need to take a long break, a long nap or something like that. Like we need those things because we have a lot of different thoughts going on throughout the day. And it may take time to do thought number 1 when we're still thinking about thought number 1,000. So it would take 2 to 3 days for me to get these articles in, and he would tell me how excellent they are. But one thing he said, news happens right now. And interestingly, I've observed where something would happen. Say, for instance, someone won the Super Bowl, and then an article comes out instantly. The game literally just finished. An article will come out instantly with all of the facts of the game or presidential speech or whatever is going on. And it instantly, and it's formatted perfectly because news happens right now. Well, a guy like me needs time. So he said, either start turning in your articles now or change your major. Well, I changed my major. So I just, because I knew myself, I was just like,
good
all
for
right,
you.
well, I changed my major. So what I changed my major to was radio and broadcasting. And that also worked out pretty well for me. I had a professor who's now deceased, but he was very influential. He was the head of the department. He was my professor as well. He was also the program director for WCLK, which was, it's not the college radio station, but it's the radio station on the college and at the college. So he was the program director for that. And WCLK ended up being the first station that I ever imaged for after he passed, actually. I ended up being the imaging voice for that station. But he was the first person to say to me, you have this amazing voice and you should try to get into voiceover work. And prior to that, I had never heard of voiceover work in my entire life.
You heard
And
voiceover your entire life, but you didn't know about the work or the career of voiceover.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And so back in the day, I'm giving clues as to how old I am. Back in the day, the internet was in its infancy. So finding information about voiceover was challenging. I did a search. I was probably using, what is it, Alta Vista or whatever it was
Alta
back
Vista.
then.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, I was probably using that. I don't even think Google was out at the time, right? So
We're talking
I
about
do.
maybe not the aughts, but before the aughts.
Yeah.
The 99s, the 90s?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's the 90s.
yeah.
It's the 90s. I did a quick search and there was a talent here in Atlanta. I wish I could remember her name. But she says, oh, yeah, well, you need to record a demo. And I found this studio here in Atlanta. I did another search, found a studio here in Atlanta. I went into the studio and I'm pulling these guys' legs for a while, right? Before I go into the studio, I'm putting my New York accent, my Brooklyn on hard, the way that only I can do. Like, yeah, man, and Uncle
Home
Roy.
with the Dodgers Brooklyn squad.
Me and Uncle Roy, this is the way that we talk to each other.
Wu-Tang forever, yeah.
we both got the hard Brooklyn on, bagels.
Yeah.
And so these guys, I can hear them rolling their eyes over the phone. And so I get to the studio and they're like, all right, read this line right here, read this line right here. And I'm like, okay, all right. And I'm like, I'm about to do this. And they hit record and I was like, it was a CNN thing. And I was like, visit cnn.com/influentials and watch CNN. Because I did the whole James Earl Jones, right? I did the whole James Earl Jones.
He was accidentally that's a whole nother story. You ever hear the story of all that? He didn't really intend to be the voice of CNN, but they copped him. That was an interesting story. But anyway, yeah. So James Earl Jones was an influencer, clearly, and that was a voice of the network at the time.
Yeah.
Right?
So that's what I imitated. And then they were like, stop. And the guy runs in to the booth. He's like, oh my gosh, this is great. Okay, I want you to read this, right? Like, he was so excited. He went from rolling his eyes on the phone to, wow, you have talent. So it ended up that they gave me this demo for free because they said to me, we've done demos for other people who wanted to do voiceover professionally. You're the first person who we think actually has a chance to be a professional voice actor. And I took that demo, I shopped it all around between agencies and individual clients and stuff like that. And I made a whopping $75 that year.
So for voiceover, I just came up with the dumbest analogy, but I'm going to go there. It's like that for some women, having this incredible, attractive body, whatever, gets attention.
Right.
But then it's their brains that keep them in that position and then they excel, right? Voiceover, I think, is a similar thing. This literally just hatched out of my crazy brain.
Okay.
Voiceover is a similar thing. Like people are like, man, your voice, it's amazing.
Yeah.
You got to do voiceover. And we all know that is by far not what's going to determine your success.
No,
in voiceover, right? So you got that, and you got that initial, damn, check out the voice on him. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then that was
check
like,
out the voice.
and then check out the voice. And then that got you in the door. And then when you got into the chair and actually could read script and you could interpret the copy and you could give a convincing performances, that was when they were like, oh, he ain't just another sexy voice. And that's pretty impressive. So first year wasn't a smash hit, but you kept at it. What was in your head that wanted you to keep doing it? Like, because for a lot of people, that the year after year one, that is pretty much determining a lot of people's fate. A lot of people don't keep going.
Well, I had a regular job. I could keep at this. And I'm going to tell you honestly, when I got into voiceover, it wasn't for CNN. It wasn't for Pepsi. It wasn't for any of these companies that 20 years in that I've worked for. It was really because I used to hear radio imaging, and I used to hear these guys on the radio producing these big commercials for events and parties that I was already going to. In Atlanta, there's parties all over the place, right? And they advertise heavily on the radio. And they would hire outside people who didn't work for the radio station to produce their commercials. And these guys got to say anything they wanted to, any way that they wanted to, put any kind of music behind them that they wanted to. Basically, they were a whole creative agency for these ads. And to add, the cherry to the top, these ads happened every single week, sometimes multiple times a week, right? So
recurring,
that's a lot of money. And I figured that out. And I thought, if I could just get in the door with some of these guys, and also too, they're not the kind of educated clientele that most voiceover compete for, right? So
they're not like these overly savvy casting agents that are
right.
Thousands of voices on the same campaign.
Right. So it's direct to client, right? So all I needed to do was be in the same space as the client was going to be in. Not to mention, the amount of competition was way lower. So you had maybe 4 guys in the Atlanta market who dominated the whole space. And because Atlanta is such a central place, a lot of people come to Atlanta and would hear those guys, and they'd be in Florida, they'd be in Tennessee, they'd be wherever, and they'd want that voice that they heard in Atlanta. So I figured that if I could get in with this, then I could have this repeat business. And so I started learning to actually produce these commercials, tinkering with Cubase. I had the Cubase LE at the time, working with multi-tracks, figuring out sound. How do I get the right amount of voice with the track? Because these tracks also had song, music, lyrics, and all this other stuff. So that conflicted with my voice. And,
how do you get the
really
voice to sit on top of all that music and be clear, but still have it all work together?
Exactly.
That's engineering.
Yeah. And also figuring out what are all the elements that are involved, because there are the obvious elements, the voice, the music, but there's also how do you put an ad together, right, that is effective for the client, for people to hear. So what I learned was that, and I used to ask people about the commercials, or I would watch people listen to these radio commercials. And one of the things that I would see is that they were really into the music. They would be singing along with the music. And I realized, okay, if you can get people's attention to sing along with the music, then they'd be invested into the ad itself. Then you sneak in the who, what, where, whens, and whys. Right. You can throw in the sound effects and all of this stuff. And those things got people's attention, right? Because they're into the music, but then it's like, ah! And then that stops them in their tracks. And then, so I really broke down these commercials. And over the next few years, I really became good at producing ads. Really good at producing ads. I have produced thousands and thousands and thousands of these ads over the years. And I realized that in spite of the fact that I've worked for some big companies over the years, auditioned for things, landed those things, I'm still the guy who started off in 2004 with a love for radio imaging and commercial production. I'm still that guy. And that's what I'm passionate about. I'm super passionate about that. I produce commercials on a regular basis. I'm actually auditioning more than I've ever auditioned on a consistent basis in my career now.
Okay.
When I'm done with auditioning, it's like, let's produce some ads.
GTT. Not sure if your studio's audio sounds competitive? A sound check by George the Tech removes all doubts and explains the next steps. Audiobooks, podcasts, voiceovers. For content creators, we do it all. New customers get 20% off their first service with a coupon code on your screen.
George the Tech.
I didn't know that about you. I love that. That's amazing. So you've been your own client for many years because you've been your own talent for your own production. So you're voicing for your own. That's what's so fun about producing. You get to be the talent. You get to assemble it. You get to decide how it's going to sound. You get to decide what the mix is going to be like.
Yeah.
And so when you're doing more straight ahead voiceover or traditional voice acting work, you have to separate yourself from all of that stuff. And now you're just a cog in this machine.
They're like,
it's a
say
very,
it like
very
this.
different
Say it
thing.
like, can you be a little bit more passionate, but a little bit calm at the same time? And it's like, what? Those two things
Can you
contradict
speed it
each
up,
other,
but make
right?
can you make it speed it up and make it sound slower? Can you do that for him?
Exactly, right? So when I produce the ads and I go straight to the client, I'm the expert. And I say it the way that I want to say it. I express myself in the way that I feel like expressing myself at that moment. And it works out great. 99% of the time. I've had a few clients that are like, oh, well, can you calm down or can you be more excited about it? Or that's happened 1% of the time. And sure, I'll go back and remix it or whatever, or revoice it.
But most of the time,
but
your instincts are on point.
Yeah. And I'm not competing with anyone. I'm not one of 600 voices that you listen to that day for this job. You want the work. You want it to be good. I already have a reputation for doing that. So,
well, let's talk a little bit about the tools of the trade since you are so much more into the production. We've already mentioned Cubase. You've been on Cubase for a really long time.
I got Cubase for free. I got my first audio interface, which was, gosh, what was that thing again? It'll come to me later, George. It'll come to me.
Was it a Steinberg product or a Yamaha product?
Yes, it was.
One of them.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Uh-huh.
I think that's how a lot, they're one of those companies that they will give you their light version of Cubase and they bundle it with as many different hardware companies as possible, right? Because it's brilliant. It gets you to start experimenting and using that tool. And then if you grow and you realize you want more power, they make that available to you. Studio One from Presonus, same thing. They give you a free version. Even Pro Tools, there's a free version to get you started. And so Cubase was the one. That was the one, and you stuck with it.
I stuck with it. Yeah, here I am. Yeah.
And then tell me about the rest of your gear. So clearly you're on a shotgun mic. Is that a 416?
This is a 416. Yeah.
Have you been using that mic for a really long time?
Yeah, I've had this mic for about 10 years now. And prior to this, I have the TLM 103. And so I have this area right here, which is where I record most of my stuff. This is an open room, but it's acoustically treated. And then in my closet, I built out a booth. So the TLM 103 is there. So when I do more long form things, then I use the TLM 103. But as I said, I do more commercial stuff and more imaging stuff. So most of the time I'm out here. Yeah.
Not only do you have two different mics, but each of those mics has their own use case. You have a very deliberate way that you use those two mics, which is really important for people buying two mics. You have to understand why that you literally would have two mics. How are they used differently? How do they react to your voice differently? How do they react to proximity effect? How do they react to the room that they're in? All of that stuff changes, right? So I love that you even have the 103 in a separate space. So it has
in a booth kind of space,
character, a booth. It's a different vibe. Everything's unique about it, which is really brilliant. I know a lot of great voice actors. Dave Fennoy does a similar thing. A lot of great voice actors have their booth environment and their larger control room environment. That's a really smart way to do it.
Yeah.
And then, so you've got those two mics, but let's talk about the interface, because that's obviously a big part of this.
I'm an Apollo freak. I'm an Apollo freak.
You're not an Apollo guy. You're an Apollo freak.
Listen,
I know you posted
listen.
something recently. You had up to 5 at one
I had
point in
5
time
Apollos. Okay. I had 5 Apollos. It's a complicated story of how I got 5 Apollos, but I had 5 Apollos. I managed to sell 2 of my Apollos. I have 3 Apollos. There's the Apollo X4 that I keep here in the studio. There's the Apollo Twin that I have that I travel with. That's the newest one. And then I have an Apollo Solo yep.
That's
Yep.
a twin. That's the OG twin. That's the first
Yeah.
gen.
So that's the one that I had. I had the OG one, but I had the USB version because attached to my audio interface, I'm a Windows guy, right? And
Right.
so they didn't.
And at that time, the only one that really worked was the USB one on when it first
absolutely
came out.
Yeah, and then Windows started really getting into Thunderbolt, right? So now I'm using Thunderbolt 4. It's still Thunderbolt 3 compatible. If you're watching this and you don't know what we're talking about, don't worry about it. most Windows computers are at least Thunderbolt, well, high end. The more high end ones are on Intel, not the AMD.
Right.
If you're working with AMD, you're just SOL, right? But if
That's for gamers. Gamers are on the AMD stuff. Yeah.
That's right. But if you're on the Intel side, you're probably working with Thunderbolt 3 right now. And yeah, Apollo is a great tool. Like I hear some talent, they're like, oh, I don't use Apollo. And I'm just like pulling my hair out. And you notice I don't have much hair, right? That's just how much I pulled out, right? Like listening to talent. I don't have Apollo. I pulled it all out. It's you guys' fault. No, but like, why don't you have an Apollo? I don't get it. They're magical.
There are horses for courses. Okay. So
okay.
obviously I'm a big Apollo fan. I have them.
Yeah.
I've trained hundreds of people on how to use them. I've done tons of webinars and content on them.
Yeah. You've helped me with mine, right? You've helped me set up my sound. Yeah.
The first one I set up was for Howard Kogan, who's the voice of Jack
Okay.
FM, playing what we want. And so I've been setting these up for years. So why in the hell did I invent another audio interface? Right?
Oh,
I literally
man.
invented a different audio interface because for some people, this is the right brain, left brain thing going on here at play, right? This single knob that does 4 different jobs is cripplingly frustrating to a lot of voice actors. They cannot, in the heat of a session, let's say a lot of people get live directed, so they have to be in Source Connect, and all of a sudden they have to cough, or they have to fart, or something's going to happen. How do they cut the mic instantly without any thought whatsoever? Can't do it, right?
There's a mute button. There's a mute button right there. Or hit the 48 volt.
You can do the 48 volt, but that cuts out and then fades out the mic, or sometimes it makes a pop noise. But it also has a line input mode, and if you press line, it'll switch. But the thing is, you have to remember to make sure the preamp is in the preamp channel 1 mode first. Then this button does it, right? All the buttons have more than one mode. And that can be cripplingly frustrating for actors.
George, listen, I love Apollo so much, I would just have to fart in the session. Just cough, fart, whatever, burp, whatever you have to do. Just do it, okay? I'm not giving up my Apollo.
I'm not saying that you can't do those things, but that's why we came up with the Passport, because this thing has a dedicated mute button for the microphone, a dedicated AB input switch to choose between 2 microphones, independent gain settings, a compressor. It's got like the skeleton of things that a typical talent needs. But for a voice producer that really loves Apollo and its processing and all the things it can do, this will feel restrictive. And that's why these two worlds exist, right?
Yeah.
Everybody has a tool that works for them and that they become so in sync with that you're inseparable. And that for you is the Apollo. And that is also true for a lot of my clients. And even though I'm like, you might be better off using this, but once you are so accustomed and comfortable with what the Apollo, and the Apollo is amazing.
Yeah.
CVOX, C-Suite noise reduction is incredible.
Listen, I can't live without that noise reduction. I can't.
So
like, you know that I'm a hardcore traveler. right? I was just
Yep.
in
I
Mexico
know, that's
last
big for
week.
you.
I produce and voice everywhere, all over the planet, right? And sometimes I'm in some really crappy spaces, the worst acoustic spaces that you can imagine.
Tile
Oh my
floors.
gosh, I hate
Mexico,
tile.
right? Don't they have a
Oh
lot of
my
tile
gosh, I
down in
hate
Mexico?
tile. Latin America loves tile. I hate it.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
or there's like you're staying in some studio apartment, and there's like cinder block around, and they have the cinder block and the tile.
Yeah, it
What
sounds
are
like a
you trying to
racquetball
do
court.
to a
It's like,
guy?
yeah,
Right. What are you
exactly.
trying?
Ultra
But
minimalistic, Spartan decor, no drape, no, like just an echo chamber from hell. Yeah.
oh my gosh. But the Apollo has got all the tools to help with that, to help mitigate that stuff. And then I also have some other plugins on the back end that also help to clean that up.
The master of the pillow fort too. Do you set up an ironing
No,
board, blankets?
I
Do you
don't.
do any of that kind of
I
stuff?
don't do any of it. I don't do any of it. I let the Apollo handle the original stuff. And then, like I said, I have some plugins on the back end that'll clean that up. And it ends up sounding pretty darn good, as if I was in the studio. I actually did some stuff from home before I went to Mexico last week. And then I had to continue this stuff in Mexico. Client
By the
had
way,
no
I tell
idea.
everybody, never ever do this. This is what I call double black belt. This is black belt level 2 production stuff. Being able to
Yeah,
pick up something from home and continue it on the road. This is you need to really know what you're doing to do this.
client
But
client didn't know the
you're doing
difference.
it.
But
Yeah,
you're
see?
the one, but it's you, George. You're the one who helped me set that up. Remember last year when I went to Japan, right? I sent you a sample, and you matched the sound to my home audio sound, right? And then I traveled Asia for 6 weeks recording. So kudos to you. It's not me. I don't know what I'm doing. I just use the templates that you give me, and
You know a
then
lot.
I roll with
You
it.
know a lot. You know a
I
lot.
roll with it, George.
And there's also kinds of voiceover work that are way more when you're producing the work and giving them finished work. You
Yeah.
can, as the producer, what you can get away with, right? You know
Yeah.
that I can fix that. I can do that. But
Yeah.
for other voice actors where they're saddled with jobs where they're like, we want raw audio, period. Or
Yeah.
you're going to be on Source Connect and listened to by the entire ad team from
Yeah.
big company and it's got to sound perfect. For that kind of stuff, that is much harder to pull off from the road. And I have set up a few people set up that do that kind of work from time to time on the road. And
Yeah.
even for the seasoned talent, it is stress inducing kind of thing because you're
Yeah.
being heard by 8 engineers, producers, clients, everybody, directors through $10,000 to $50,000 monitor speakers in a studio,
Yeah.
and you're just in a closet on your 416, hoping
Yeah.
they're okay with it. So yeah, there's different levels, but the kind of work you do gives you that flexibility, and the fact that you
Yeah.
have the ear, because you have to have the ear. If
I
you
also
don't
do this.
know what it is you're producing, you do a
I
little
also
bit
cross
of
my
that.
fingers.
Okay.
Also cross my fingers a lot.
It's a little bit of everything. There's some luck involved, but you know what it's supposed to sound like. You saying you, Dane, you know what it's supposed to sound like. That
Yeah.
if I record this technique and use these techniques when I'm on the road, I feel confident that what I'm doing here will now match up favorably with what I did at home or what I do from home.
And I'm actually
that
using a
takes
different
confidence.
microphone on the road. So
Tell me again what you're using on the road. I forgot.
It's, gosh, what is that? Not Audio Technica. It's the Rode NTG3.
Oh yeah, is that the silver one?
No, the black one.
It's a nickel colored. Oh, it might be
No,
the
it's-
NTG4 or the NTG5. One of those, maybe.
No, I have
I
the
don't know.
NTG3.
Okay.
It's very similar to the 416, but it's got a lot more bottom to it.
Yes, it's a darker, more full, rich sounding.
Yeah.
So you have to EQ it a little bit differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that mic, those are great. And if that one gets taken by security or broken, you're not quite as heartbroken. as
That's
if
the
you're
reason why.
416.
That's the reason why I bought it. Yep. If it's tossed around, if it's damaged or something like that, I can still come home and I still got this microphone right here.
Absolutely, man. Gosh, we could talk for another hour. and I would if I could. And because I love talking to you, I love the way you think,
Man, I appreciate it. Yeah.
and I love spending time with you. Oh, will I get to see you a little in a couple of weeks?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right,
I'm gonna
cool.
stop through at VO Atlanta
Okay.
probably on Saturday evening. I always love coming there because the voiceover industry is my family. Like
Yeah.
you guys, everyone in the community is my family, and I just love it. It's one of the most exciting parts of my year, to be very honest, VO Atlanta. So I'll
I love
be
it.
there. I won't be able to dedicate as much time as I have in the past
That's
because
okay.
I got a bunch
That's
of
okay.
things going on, and I'm taking a big trip, right? Like that Sunday, I'm heading to India. So I
Awesome.
will stop by and I'll give everybody hugs and handshakes and stuff like that.
Good.
So, but I'll definitely look for you.
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
That being said, and I was hesitating to bring this up, but we lost somebody in the community.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with the
Yeah.
gentleman that passed
Yeah.
away?
Trey Thomas Murphy in Atlanta, as a matter of fact.
I just wanted to
Yeah,
mention it because I
very.
thought you might have known him from the community. I've
I
seen
do.
so much outpouring online about this gentleman who I barely knew.
Yeah.
Maybe I met him one time at VO Atlanta. I don't know. But
Yeah.
gosh,
So
I
I've
don't know
met
what to
him.
say. That must have hit
Yeah.
you, must have hit home because he's a guy that works in the same world as you, producing,
Yeah.
working at home a lot, a
Yeah.
very isolated kind of life, right?
Yeah. So I want to say, well, thanks for bringing that up because working in voiceover can be an extremely lonely business. Owning your own business can be extremely lonely, isolating, frustrating, confusing because a lot of us are talent. We're not business people.
Yeah.
And so we're handling the marketing, the talent side of things, in my case and in Trey Murphy's case, the production side of things. There's so much pressure for us to perform. And for the most part, we're in a booth. When I'm done with this interview, it's me all day for the rest of the day. I'm the one talking to myself. I'm the one figuring things out and whatever.
You're the one
And
paying the next bill. You're the
yeah,
one deciding if I can stay here in this apartment for another year, whatever it is.
yeah,
It's you
yeah.
making those decisions.
It's hard. One thing that I should have added is that the first year I did voiceover, I made $75, but I didn't make much money for the next 4 years after that. It's tough. It's draining. It's mentally draining. And we live in a society where the amount of money you make is almost like the score, right? It's like keeping score. And that score for a lot of people reflects their value. And it's tough. I've dealt with depression a lot myself, and I've wanted to give up, but I'm fortunate that my fortunes have turned around in voiceover, and I kept going by some luck, having other support, having other outlets, and just being lucky. I not to go on too long, but I remember when I
It's okay.
interviewed Joe Cipriano and I asked him what was the key to his success, and he named several things, but he also said luck played a big part in his success. And I was shocked to hear that because most people don't attribute luck to their success. I worked so hard, I did this, I did that, but someone so successful attributed part of his success to, yeah, I put in the work, I did this here, but then I just got lucky that I got this opportunity. And when I got this opportunity, the talent was there, the readiness was there. But luck is so
favors the
important.
prepared is
Yeah.
one of my favorite phrases. Luck favors the
Yeah.
prepared. But
So
still, luck is still a factor.
luck is still a factor, and not all of us are lucky. And I think we have to have empathy for people who are not as lucky as we are, right? And also listen. There are a lot of people who are hurting. They're not just in voiceover, and you hear it expressed in anger and sometimes in silence. And let's start to pay attention to those things. I always say that we are here in life to help each other get through life. Let's help each other get through life. I'm here in Atlanta. I didn't interact with Trey very much. In fact, I don't think I've seen him for at least a year.
That's how it goes. There are
yeah.
people, there's thousands of people in LA I know here. Where do I see them? VO Atlanta or some conference. It's like, oh, we get to hang out for the day. You live 30 miles away from me. But that's the way this business can go, because when you're at home and you're running your business, you're minding your business. The hustle is on. And for you get to, I should say, you're privileged to decompress by traveling.
I'm lucky.
And that's a lucky privilege to do that. And for many people, they cannot do that. And and they haven't found something that lets their brain shut down. And they haven't found a meditation, or they haven't found a fitness routine, or for me, it's mountain biking. My mountain biking is so important to get out on the bike a couple of day or two a week. And that's my moving meditation, where I absolutely forget all of the troubles, the stress.
Every day for me is the
everything.
gym. I'm the gym guy. Every morning I start off with the gym.
So beneficial.
And it's not just my physical body, but getting that blood flowing to my brain, it changes my mood. And
so smart.
Listen, we get this one life, and my thing, in spite of the fact that I've wanted to give up plenty of times, again, like I said, I've suffered from depression myself. I personally want to run out the clock because I have plenty of time to be gone. Right? Once I'm gone, I'm going to be gone. And life is going to be ebbs. It's going to be flows. And when I'm down, I remember some of the amazing parts of my life, right? I have heard myself on the radio and seen ads that I've done or things on the internet with my voice, and they just pop up, right? Like I didn't expect them to pop up. They just pop up. And I just think, I did that. It's more than just the money that I made from that. I was like, wow, that's me. And it's something to be proud of. And you can be proud of your kids. You can be proud of your personal accomplishments. There's so much to be proud of and excited about in life, even when things aren't flowing the way that you want them to flow. Yeah. But it's important to also understand that there's a physiological aspect of depression that is not always external, right? It can be diet, it can be environment, it can be a whole host of things. And the brain, just like the heart, can fail. I'm going to say this in closing. One of my buddies always says, check on your people. Let's check on each other as voiceover talent. We all have these spaces, right, where we're just here alone. And our outlet is sometimes just Facebook or whatever to connect with people. Pick up the phone. Just call people. Let them know that you're not alone in this. We're all crazy folks talking to ourselves in a booth and a microphone. But let's talk to some real people sometimes.
And
too.
don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Don't be afraid to show emotion. Don't let that stuff get in your way. I think you and I saw Rick Party's. You saw Rick Party? His video? Yeah. That meant a lot. That was solid. Solid.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah. Man, I hate to leave it on a negative note. That's such a thing, but let's say it's a positive note in that we're using this moment to reflect on these important truths and that we're going to do these things, and a reminder of how important it is. And that this time is important too. And thanks, Dane. I appreciate your time so much.
Man,
it's been a great time to hang out with you.
You having me on, man. I'm sure you've interviewed some elite talent, and then you got me.
Self-deprecating humor, man. That'll get you to host the Oscars one day.
I'm hoping to be the VOG for the Oscars one day. That's my...
How about that?
I love live announcing, so I travel to do live announcing, too. That's another part of my whole...
Absolutely. In fact, I know people that can't be at VO Atlanta for that reason exactly. They've got gigs. They got to go to their live announce gigs. So I'll see you. We'll get to hang for a minute and
Yeah.
in Atlanta, and always a pleasure.
Yeah.
We'll revisit this again. We'll have another, hopefully we'll
Let's
have
do
another
it.
conversation and we'll get to chat longer and get into some stuff. But thanks so much, Dane.
No, thank
y'all
you.
follow Dane. Dane, where do they follow you? Do you do hashtags? Do you do social, or
Oh,
do you just have a
man.
web address? What do you want? How do you want people to find you?
I really want them to find me because they want to send me some cash. And I have
The bills go to one address, the cash goes to another address. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, check me out on DaneReidMedia.com. I got a ton of blogs and interviews and stuff like that. DaneReid media.com. So that's me. And then I'm on Instagram. I think I'm Dane_Reid. I think that's what I am. Just look for me. Just look for me. I post a lot of my travel stuff. Voiceover and travel are my passions. Those are the things that I enjoy doing. And
Where can I see? Is the best place to find all the interviews through your website, or do you have a YouTube channel that you direct?
Yeah, the
people
website has. Yeah, so the website, the blogs always have the interviews embedded in the blog, so you can read what I'm thinking, and you can just watch if you just. Or you can go to YouTube if you're just on YouTube, Dane Reid Media. Yeah, Dane Reid Media. Dane Reid Media is the YouTube page. So
That's good, man. Sounds
Thank
good.
you, George, man.
Thank
It's
you
always
for your
good
time.
to see you. I don't even feel like this was an interview. It's just like you and me just chatting it up.
That's the goal, man. I'm trying to capture that vibe that you like to do in person, but still do it from afar. That's what I'm going for. So
That's what's up.
that's what we managed to pull off with a little bit of technical hurdles in the way at the beginning, but we made it happen.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We're good. Thank you,
Cool.
George.
Thank you.
All right, man. You take care.
GTT. Not sure if your studio's audio sounds competitive? A sound check by George the Tech removes all doubts and explains the next steps. Audiobooks, podcasts, voiceovers. For content creators, we do it all. New customers get 20% off their first service with a coupon code on your screen.
George the Tech.